Yeah, first thing, man, let's dive into how you got on the path of Yogalap and what exactly is Yogalap.
So how I got on the path with it, I think I always had the urge, and many people might have had it, you as well, Gary might have had it as well, that you um, uh, experienced some kind of connection with life, or you found maybe through your life some things that you felt, hey, this really works for me. This is great. Now I can start to feel more in peace, more fulfilled, more joyful, whatever it is. And it's just something you want to start sharing with others, because I think it's part of our human nature to share what you have found. I think that's how we survived hundreds and thousands of years or thousands of years ago as tribes, and that it's ingrained in our system that you want to share what you found. And basically, I had that as well. I always felt this strong connection with life, with creation, with God, and I saw in my surroundings a lot of people that were suffering from depression, from um, being really stressed out, or having a mind that is constantly on in a mode which is very, let's say, self-destructive, and it just they cannot find a peace of mind. And I noticed, like, hey, I wanna help them, do something for them. And first, that was just with just talking with people. That was that it seemed it really helped them. But then I found more and more that there was also a lot of these wonderful techniques that I started doing more and more of meditation, of breath work, QiGong, all these methods that are great for, in a way, purifying your emotional system, your mind, so that it's more free to be able to feel that that connection, or that lightness in life, or that playfulness in life. And I started diving deeper and deeper into that, and traveling a lot. And then I created this platform, the Life Awareness Project, in which I started sharing a lot of this knowledge of Qigong, mindfulness, breathwork, meditation, mind training, all these kind of things. And that's how it came to life, basically.
That's awesome. Isn't it beautiful how it's all within us, like all this this path to peace and happiness, I guess you could say. It's really all within ourselves, and it starts with our breath. It's very simple, yet it's a little, it can be a little intense, it can be a little hard, yet it's just so simple. If you learn to control your breath, you learn to control your being, and it's just it seems too good to be true, right?
Yeah,
But if
and
you
and
do
it,
it,
it absolutely, absolutely, and it's such a shame, right? That in the culture where we grow up in, it's you learn so much about the world around you, about mathematics, about geometry, or about nature, geology, all that kind of things, but you learn nothing about how to train your mind, how to deal good with your emotions, how to use emotions in a better way, and how to use your breath to be able to connect with all that.
yeah.
And it's such, like you said, it's such a simple thing, yet we always find ways to make life so complicated, and more complicated, by trying to find solutions that don't really work. But the breathing works, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. How did
No,
you come to find that? Like, what led you? I know I just asked you that, but I mean, was there like something that said, you know what, I gotta find a different way to find my internal peace? Was there like a moment or a few moments that kind of got you on that?
um, well, I always was very curious about how the brain works and how the mind works and all these things, and always quite interested in religion, and those kinds of things. So I think it's that curiosity, like, okay, I am alive. I can think. Sometimes the thoughts make me happy. Sometimes the thoughts make me sad. Is there a way that I can try to influence my thoughts in a way that I feel happy? So I think at about an age of 13, 14, something like that, um, this curiosity became stronger and stronger. And I started reading a lot also about how the brain works, books about psychology, books about different religions, all that kind of stuff. And it started to make a bit more sense to me more and more I was reading about it, that um, it doesn't matter how many beautiful theories you know and how much things make sense theoretical, but as long as you don't really experience it, as long as you don't feel it, it's still meaningless, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that it's besides the theory also really important to feel this. And that's when I started to also get more interested in all these different types of techniques like meditation. And I think all this was also partly triggered, or maybe not triggered, but yeah, catalyzed, or that it went in a stronger mode. When I was a bit younger, I also sometimes started experimenting a bit with drugs, with magic mushrooms, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
or with marijuana when I was quite young, and not much, not like I was smoking every day or something like that. Never have I done that, but just in a very, very spiritual way, almost trying to
Yeah.
really use it as a sacred medicinal thing. And I think that also made me, you know, how that makes your awareness shift a little bit. You start to see things from just a little bit different perspective.
Yep.
And then you realize, like, hey, the perspective in which I'm constantly seeing it does not mean that it's the only perspective. It's just my perspective on things. And if I shift it a little bit, then all of a sudden I experience this life or myself in a very different way. So it all comes down on how you experience life. And this is something that can change and something that you can influence through different techniques of breathwork and meditation also. And that was, I think, um, really something that pushed also that search or that discovery, the journey in a way.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I like how you said it starts with like curiosity, and I think that is like the foundation of self-awareness, self-realization. It's like, wait a second, there's got to be another way. Like, what is this? Who am I? Like, how do I, how do I find a little semblance of peace, or how do I find out who I am? And it does, man. It
Exactly.
starts. It starts with like just self-inquiry, just asking the right questions. It doesn't mean you're gonna get the answer right away, but at least you ask the question, and you can dive into these practices of the past, or magic mushrooms and marijuana and whatever the practice is. There's plenty of tools and outlets for us to really dive into our being nowadays. And it starts with just simply asking the question, because I'm not judging, but I don't think a lot of people in our world ask the question enough. Like, we have all the answers on our phone, the answers, quote unquote, on our
Yeah.
phone or on the computer, telling us who we are and what the story is, what the narrative is of the world. And it doesn't really allow one to be able to say, wait a second, what does it mean? What does it really mean to be Gary, or to be a human being? And it's all up to us. I mean, nothing's really going to do it for you, I don't think. I mean, we can point the direction, point people in the right direction, but it's really up to everybody's own accord to sit down and be like, wait a second, hold on, I'm going to put down the phone. I'm going to stop listening to this podcast. I'm just gonna breathe for a second and just feel what it feels like to be a human being. And that's where it starts. It's just kind of like just disconnecting from the outside world, the craziness, the illusion of Maya, and connecting with yourself internally. And it's just curiosity, man. Curiosity leads the way.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, how you search for the answer determines if you're really going to find the question. Because if sometimes people try to find out, okay, what is life all about, or who am I, and you try to find it on Google, you get
Yeah.
all sorts of stories and all sorts of theories and everything. But to find the answer in a way to just experience it, like, okay, what am I then? And just feeling what you are, experiencing what you are, instead of that mind that produces the question is gonna look for answers on that same level of the mind, but it's never gonna be satisfied, because you still have not experienced the truth in a way, the answer. And truth is something that you can only really experience, and not packages in some nice theory and here this is truth. No, truth
Yeah.
happens when the mind in a way stops, and you just start to feel all these things. And this is the beauty, of course, with all these techniques and also meditation, is that for a moment you you stop the narrative of the mind, or all the layers of the stories you
Yeah.
put on this reality, and in a way this illusion that you have about what reality is. You just start to feel, okay, I breathe, it's a body that's alive, there's life energy, I can feel it. There's maybe some emotions that are a bit stuck, maybe there is some joy, some happiness, constantly changing. This is how I experience life. And if there's a lot of talking in my head, okay, there must also be somebody listening.
Hmm.
So that's the listener. And you start to figure out by looking at it and then listening to it what it is, and not by theorizing about it or letting other people theorize about who you are.
Exactly. Hmm. What do you think is the quickest way or most efficient way to get out of the spell of the mind? You know, this kind of illusion, almost psychosis that our world is living under. What do you think is the most efficient way for the populace of the world to be on that wavelength of just quieting down the craziness of our thoughts, and then being able to find that stillness?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say some wonderful breathing techniques that are out there, and also on YouTube I've put out a lot of breathing techniques that people can do, because in a way, if you do some really strong breathing, it just kind of resets for a moment your whole brain, your whole nervous system, all the whole endocrine system. Everything starts to go into a very different mode, and it breaks certain habitual patterns of feeling and thinking, and it can unblock stuff. And this really helps, but people have to understand there is no quick fix for this. Maybe for 30 years, people have been training their mind into a habitual way of thinking, which is very much in a restless way,
Yeah.
and this overthinking. And it's like a almost a bit like a, a garden that people have not been paying too much attention to, and it's full of thorny bushes, and it's
Yeah.
full of crap, and it's full, and then they think it's just a quick fix to grow a beautiful garden. No,
Hmm.
it takes a lot of time and effort. So whilst it can help momentarily creating that moment of peace, um, people have to realize, okay, if I want to have that for a longer period of time, or that is my um, normal habitual way of feeling and thinking, I have to prioritize some of my lifetime, some of my daytime for this. Every day, maybe half an hour or even more. I have to prioritize my mental health to cultivate a more calm mind.
Hmm.
So um, if people, and I think everybody wants that, want to have a more calm, peaceful, relaxed mind, to be able more to enjoy just being, basically being alive, then how important is it to you? Are you willing to spend maybe half an hour, or if you're really serious about it, maybe 1 hour less on your phone or on the computer or whatever it is, and spend it on your mental health and emotional health, and doing these techniques, this cultivation of this inner world, your inner self. This garden, as I mentioned, you have to start planting new things, start to give it attention, take all the old crap that is in there, all the thorny bushes that make it so uncomfortable for you to be with yourself.
Yes. You have to tend to the inner Garden of Eden.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But it's interesting to see, just the one thing about it, how low on the priority list this is for people.
Yeah.
Whilst it is such an important thing. In the end, everybody kind of knows it, but very few people in our whole society is not really living up to this. It is very normal to overwork or to really put 8 hours of your day on your work, and then maybe also 3 hours for entertainment. But doing something to cultivate your inner garden, cultivate the mind, is something like, oh wow, that's very special. But it's the foundation of our whole life, right? It's the foundation on how we experience this life. So I think there's a shift happening. Maybe you see that as well, Gary, and through a lot of those talks that you're doing, I'm sure you're inspiring a lot of people also. But hopefully it will become a normality.
Yeah.
It's what they teach people in schools, hopefully in a couple of years. That's the thing that you do. Of course, you brush your teeth, but also you clean your mind every day.
It would be a completely different world. If we live in that world, it would just look different. It will feel different. It would be like an alien world, I think. If there were 7 billion people on that wavelength of meditation and just self-inquiry and just, like you said, taking care of the mind stuff, it would look different. There wouldn't be war. There would just, like I said, it's probably incomprehensible to us on how it would appear. But I do believe we are going to that wavelength. I know it might not seem like it if you have the news turned on all day, but I think there's something going on behind the scenes where there's people that they're saying they're fed up with the current paradigm and they're getting on something, a new wavelength, a new way to live. And yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen in this generation. It might take a few years, but I think we're going to get there eventually. I think it's inevitable. For some reason, there's something in my being that is just like drawing me toward this state, this collective state of consciousness. A new yuga, getting through Kali Yuga and going to this heaven-like state on Earth, I guess you could say, because that's what it would be like if everybody's on this wavelength. It would be like heaven, man. And we're not quite there. We're not quite there, but we're gonna get there. I do believe we're gonna get there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you see, most of listeners already know this, of course, but how many billions are spent on warfare and defense and everything per year? Imagine if that was just spent on creating good stuff for the planet, and all the technology that we already have to make this Earth a paradise. If it just needs a shift of intention, a shift of focus of humanity. And it's the evolution of consciousness also, in a way, right? If it's a very uninvolved consciousness, it's like an animal consciousness. It just wants to survive, it wants to procreate, maybe have a little bit of fun. And but as soon as there is some danger, you go into defense and attack mode. And that's the layer of the life experience. Whereas and through all these wonderful techniques that we hope to share, that you start to become able to cultivate that consciousness, that it's not only about having pleasure or trying to survive or only being busy with the mind thinks about your past of guilt and shame or anger or happiness, that it's all about that. But you start to realize, like, hey, I start to feel this inner peace, and I can start to be creative. And if you start to go more into this cultivation of your consciousness, you start to feel this connection with other human beings. You start to feel peace, love. You start to feel this connection with the whole world. You want to take care of others. You want to take care of nature, all these things.
Hmm.
And that's a slow process. And in a way, everything that happens in this reality and in this cosmos needs to happen because it happens.
Hmm.
But it's all part of that process, right? And we are just experiencing a small part of it now.
Yeah, really wonderful time to be alive. I know, like I said, it might not seem like it, but this is like the transformation. We're at the moment of transformation. Very great change in a very small amount of time. And it may, like I said, I did say before, it's going to take a little bit of time, but relative to the universe and how long we've been here, it's actually happening extremely fast. And I
Mhm.
think it might be a little too fast for some people to handle, but I mean, that's just the order of the order of the universe is the way it's supposed to happen. I guess it's like it's like this change that should have happened a while ago, but it's kind of just all of a sudden being brought about at this moment in time within the last, I don't know, maybe since the 60s and 70s. I don't know, maybe since the 20th century, maybe since the end of World War II. I don't know, but there was there's something that's happening. There's some kind of change of consciousness that's happening collectively. But what do you think what is it gonna take for everyone to be on that wavelength? Because you said that everybody's capable to be on that wavelength. I believe that too, even though it might seem a little hard to believe. But what is it gonna take for us to all be on that heaven-like state?
A good question. I think on the one hand, all these practices need to become more scientifically evidenced
Yeah,
because a lot of people are very much in the mind. Our whole culture, it's all about mind. Everything has to be proven scientifically, otherwise it's a bunch of baloney.
yeah,
And it's very wonderful that it is now becoming more and more scientifically proven. Things like meditation with John Kabat-Zinn, what he's doing with meditation, or Wim Hof, what he's been doing with breath work, all that kind of stuff. People start to see, hey, this stuff is real. This makes sense. On the other hand, also people need to become fed up enough with the old
yeah,
system, and people are becoming more fed up with it. People starting to realize, like, hey, it's not giving me any fulfillment, or getting fed up with how this world geopolitics is working with war. How stupid is war? And people becoming less and less, in a way, nationalistic about, oh, my country or your country. No, it's becoming this one world identification. Like, okay, we're all human beings on the same planet. So um, this, and also the wonderful thing now with technology, in one way it's keeping people on the screen, and it's keeping them really kind of down. But on the other hand, there's so much beautiful information with this.
mm,
Imagine that you wanted to learn how to meditate in the 1900s, or you wanted to learn breath work. What did you do? You went to India, but
yeah,
then maybe to a guru that didn't really speak English. And nowadays it's all there.
yeah,
Everything that you want to know, it's all there. So people are getting fed up with a certain way of life. We have everything that we want, but we still don't feel satisfaction. There is the knowledge and the access to this knowledge all available now. And people are just becoming more conscious that we are all beings on the same planet, and it doesn't matter what color you are, what country you're from. We all want the same thing, that is to feel fulfillment, joy, happiness, unity, all these kind of things.
yeah. Isn't it interesting how you do these practices and you bring yourself to a sense of peace and, the list goes on. You just ultimately, just feel better, to put it simply. And then along the way comes these realizations, these kind of dawnings, these enlightenments, I guess you could say, of like, whoa, all is one. Like I'm in this one world together. Like we're all one species, and it's this interconnectivity, this direct experience of interconnectivity that comes along the way. it's peculiar, right? It's like a byproduct of finding your own inner peace. It's actually you find out your your constant connectivity with others in the world. It's great.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and and this is expanding your consciousness. A lot of people expanding your consciousness sounds very woo, 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 but you just expand your consciousness, not just this physical body and me, I have to survive, I have to get pleasure for myself or procreate, but you start to evolve your consciousness and expand your consciousness, that you start to feel like, hey, not just this physical body, but there's also this interconnection with
Hmm.
something greater than myself. And that becomes greater and greater and greater also. And this is really needed, this evolution of the consciousness to change completely our behavior as well. Because I think on one level we are trying to control ourself as humanity to behave in a different way by putting rules on ourselves, by putting restrictions on ourselves, and we should do this, we should do that. But that will all come naturally once we start to understand uh,
Yeah.
why this is good. And this is why all these techniques, which are becoming so popular now, breathing, meditation, qigong, yoga, that they all help the cultivation of the consciousness.
Hmm. So what happens physiologically when we do things like, pranayama, breath of fire, all of these techniques? What actually happens scientifically, would you say?
Mhm. Now, the stronger, more powerful breathing techniques, which are many different forms and they have many different names, but in a way, it's all hyperventilation. You breathe more than you actually need, than your body needs. So what happens is you put a lot of carbon dioxide out of your system, and not really more oxygen in, because you can only bring a certain amount of more oxygen in, like 2% or something like that. So more carbon dioxide out, which has all sorts of effect on your system. For example, there is cardio restrictions, that your vessel restriction, that all the veins in your body start to contract. There is less release of oxygen in the cells, so you start to deprive your brain from oxygen, actually, which makes you very dizzy, or you can even faint. It starts to trigger also your sympathetic nervous system. Your adrenal glands are starting to release adrenaline, and all sorts of neurotransmitters are being released. You start to feel really spaced out. So all of this happens, and what happens after that, your body goes into a very deep relaxing state. So first it's a very activating thing, and you start to feel all sorts of sensations, maybe even cramps in the muscular system. But after that, your body goes into a parasympathetic nervous system, which is a deeply relaxing nervous system. And that helps then, for example, your heart rate slows down, your breathing slows down, your veins, they all start to open up a little bit more. The carbon dioxide level rises again, so oxygen can be released easier into the whole body. And this moment of deep relaxation is when people sometimes feel like, hey, this is a moment of peace I have not experienced in a long time. Because the mind, and this becomes a bit less scientific, because there is not much science about the mind. We cannot really measure the mind so well, besides doing brain scans, but then we just see which brain part lights up. But this really helps to unblock the mind, because we can sometimes be stuck in certain patterns of thinking, of overthinking, this or stuck with our emotions, that some things are blocked. And these strong breathing techniques, they can really help to unblock these things, to change that habitual pattern of thinking, kind of reset it all in a way.
Mm,
And this works really really well.
yeah. I've tried them, and it's like night and day. Before I do a breathing exercise, and then after, I'm like, whoa, that's not just magic. That actually there's something happening in my body, in my brain that breathing exercise just did. And for anybody that's listening that doesn't believe, go on Michael's channel, do some of his breathing exercises and try them out yourself, because that's the only way. Like you said, science isn't really up to date on those kind of techniques quite yet, but if you do it, you'll become a believer. They're very
Yeah,
powerful.
absolutely. And that's the thing. There is only a certain level that science can prove, and but there is the whole level of experiencing emotions and thoughts and all these things that is just beyond what science can prove or not. Science can prove what types of neurotransmitters are being released and endorphins and what kind of hormones, but the experience of that inner peace, the experience of that sense of unity, of like,
Yeah.
it's all good, it's all good. That is something, like Gary said, people really try it out, really,
Yeah.
really do it, and you will feel what you can do with breath, and it's free. You can do it at home, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's so like we take it for granted because we have our phones on us all the time. We have this technology on us and with us at all times, all around us. But like you said before, we have so much knowledge at our fingertips. It's actually mind-blowing when you sit down and think about it. Like all of this ancient yogic knowledge that you would have had to go to India for, it's literally within a few seconds away from all of us. All of these techniques that you would have had to probably go to India or maybe go to a library, read a book and find this book. How would you even know what books to read? I don't know. Most of my yogic journey is from the internet. Like everything that I've learned, or most of the things that I've learned, is from people on the internet, like you and many others that have decided to put this knowledge out to the world. And it's really amazing when you just sit down and fathom that the time that we're living in. It's like, whoa, like anybody can become the guru, anybody can become this self-realized being if you really want to. If you really want to get on your grind and find that inner peace, it's like we live in this very, very crazy time where it's capable, everybody is capable of finding that. And I don't know, it's easy to take that for granted, but
Absolutely,
everybody
and it's
can.
easy to get stuck in this uh, jumping from one new thing to the other, and just trying something new, trying something new, trying something new. But like you mentioned, if you really realize, hey, what you have there with knowledge, it's so valuable, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Make use of it. Um, every day, just like make a kind of maybe schedule for yourself. Okay, every day I'm going to spend a bit of time to learn something new, and our brain is made to learn new things. So now there's all the knowledge to keep upgrading your life, upgrading your brain by just sticking to something that you want to learn about all these techniques. And it is
Yeah.
indeed a very, very, very special time that we are living in, where there's so much knowledge and technology at our feet, and this is really the main ingredient for this change that is also happening.
Yeah. 100%. It can go either way. You could get lost in the sauce and just get sucked into the news or
Yeah.
TikTok and Facebook, or if you really want, you can become this almost superhuman of yogic knowledge or whatever kind of knowledge. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You could whatever anything. You don't have to learn about breathing techniques, even though that would probably help you. It's just like we have the world's library at our fingertips. And yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's like it's unfathomable. If you were to say something like this to somebody back in the 1500s in England, they would be like, "What is this? What is this
Yeah.
magic that you brought to me? It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense."
And how are many people using that then nowadays? Like,
Yeah.
so much beautiful knowledge, and what do you how do you use it?
Hmm.
Sometimes not the best ways, but this is sometimes like a little exercise I do with some of my students, is to think for yourself, like, okay, just imagine if I would, for like a month, if I would every day really take some time to do some of these techniques, to learn more about this, how would I feel then? Probably you would feel a bit more energized, a bit more focused. You would know better what you want. Imagine if you would do it for a whole year, and just trying to feel that you see yourself in that upgraded version.
Mm,
Because if you can start to see it with your mind, and in a way subconsciously you start to make different choices as well, you start to go in that direction, and you start to become able to, yeah, design your own life, or give your life direction by thinking like, okay, how do I want to feel, what do I want to learn? Okay, I'm going to imagine, I'm going to feel it, just all this knowledge is already there. Every day I'm going to do some things, and then it's, you start to make different choices, you start to um, choose your time differently, and how you spend your time differently.
yeah.
And yeah, it's all the ingredients are there, people, to change your life completely. You just have to put a bit of effort in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what comes along the way too, is like a sense of empowerment
Yeah.
to a sense of freedom, almost like liberation that comes along the way
Hmm.
to
Mm.
direct your life how you want to direct it.
Yeah,
It's pretty awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. This freedom that you start to feel that, okay, this is almost a bit, this is the cat
We
kiwi
have a
always want to
guest.
say hello. That you start to understand, it's almost like a game in which you can upgrade yourself
Yeah, right?
into such a beautiful way, and you can just start to flow and become playful, and learn and create and do, instead of feeling like, the circumstances determine where I am now, the way that I feel, and I'm just gonna live a bit underneath. But you can live in this creator mode
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Like in video games, how they have God mode. It's like a cheat code, and you can like do whatever you want. It's kind of like that. Yeah, you get into that creator mode where you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey man, that's the wavelength. I think it's we're getting to that. And think about this, a power where everybody's on that wavelength, like we talked about before, of empowerment. We're all creating together. There's so much manifestation power in that, because one person can direct their life, but what if we're all on that same wavelength of creating this better world together? It may seem crazy idealistic, it may seem like some hippie thoughts that I'm talking about here, but I think it's possible, man. Like I think we're all, because once you get on that wavelength that we're talking about, we're kind of like all on that same wavelength of, all right, I'm going to better myself and I'm going to better the world, right? I'm going to give back a little bit. So
Absolutely.
imagine if everybody was on that. It would, I think this world would change a lot quicker than we could imagine. And
Completely.
it would be a
Completely.
different world. It would be, like I said before, it would be like just a completely unrecognizable world that we currently live in. But I think it's possible, man. I
I,
think it's
I, I
possible.
agree absolutely with you. And imagine the wonderful Beatles song. Imagine all the people
Yeah.
living. But it starts with that. And it is not such a far-fetched idea. And people, it starts with this imagination that you, and just like I said, imagine yourself in 1 year doing everyday things like this. How would you live? Imagine humanity if it would change. And because in a way, on an individual level, it really works like that. If somebody feels really guilty about themselves, or guilty about something, or they feel a bit of stuck emotions, and they feel a bit down, that determines the way that they see themselves, and they see themselves in the future, and that determines the choices that they make and how they experience their life. So they create, in a way, their life, or going in that direction, on based on how they feel. But
Mm,
that goes for the whole of humanity as well. If this whole collective consciousness, all these individuals feel really like, we're really bad human beings anyway, and we feel shit anyway, and it's not good, and yeah, then we're gonna go that direction, going from emptiness into destruction, basically. And
yeah.
this is, I think, very important, that um, what we are feeding ourselves mentally day in, day out, is a lot of negative images about the world, about the possibilities in the world. I don't know many. I know one, which is called La Belle Verde, the green earth, the beautiful green, sorry, the movie is called, which is about a beautiful future. But most of the movies I know, and that we get fed in a way from a young age of how the future is going to be, is about an apocalyptic event happening in the future, the whole world going completely broken, that everything is turning to shit basically. And that's the imagination that we have about our future. So if I ask now a lot of young people how they see the future, they have a very, very negative image about their future. And that is exactly how people will behave. So if we start to, in a way, feed ourselves with this imagination, how the future can be, and start to, as a collective consciousness, get onto a different perspective towards our future, we start to behave differently, we start to create differently. One more thing about this, they did, for example, tests with research about if you have children that you keep saying they're bad kids, you don't do anything else, but you just say something negative to them, that's exactly the way that they're going to behave. And if you treat and say to a kid that they're very good, that they're friendly, that's exactly the way that they're going to behave. And we keep telling ourselves now that we are really bad, that we should feel guilty, that everything is turning to shit. It's not helping. Everybody knows that our behavior is wrong. Everybody knows that already. What has to change is this inner vision about ourselves, about what we can do, not what we should not do, but what we can do, how we could change, and put the focus on that. And then things will start to happen.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
We create our own reality as an individual, but also as a collective consciousness on this earth. All the circumstances, we can influence that on a deeper level by feeding ourselves with good stuff mentally.
Yes, exactly. I call it the energetic diet, like not only your food diet, but what you experience on here, what you read, the people that you decide to hang with, the list goes on, like are pretty much what you take in through your five senses. You got to make sure you're taking in the right stuff. And if you're taking in the right stuff, then you're going to put out the right stuff. And it's just the cycle that goes back and forth. For sure.
That's it. Absolutely. Energetic diet. So people really check your energetic diet. Make sure that that's good.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, that was good. Well said. I really don't know where we can go from here. Yeah, it starts within. It starts just with the foundation of telling yourself the right things, right? We got to start talking to ourselves a little bit better and start talking about this world a little bit better and just be a little bit nicer to ourselves, love ourselves.
Absolutely. And looking at all the opportunities, we have all the tools, we have all the technology, all the things to make that change happen. We are just using it in the wrong way, and that is because the intention at the source, there is something not good. We are still as a humanity, as a human consciousness, we are still making the choices out of this lower consciousness level, out of greed, out of wanting things for me, and I have to survive in this dangerous reality, in this dangerous nature, but feeling like, hey, I am connected. We are all connected. We can start to make something, create something beautiful, focusing and imagining that, and then focusing on the solutions, not the problems.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen, Michael. I think we could probably wrap it up at that.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Do you have any last words?
I think everyone as an individual has a responsibility towards their own life, but also towards this collective consciousness towards nature and earth, and that is to make sure that your mind, your emotional system is in a way pure, meaning that there's not so much blockages, not so much crap in your system. And there are all these wonderful techniques for that, which on YouTube there's a lot of videos, but also on the Yogalap website, that you start to take a little bit of time to prioritize. Every day I'm gonna take a moment to take care of my emotional system. No matter how much luggage, no matter how much crap you carry with you, you're gonna start to clean it out step by step, every day a little bit, every day a little bit, no matter how challenging and difficult it is, because you start to liberate yourself, free your mind, free your soul, basically, and start to live as a free spirit of good vibes, of light. Life becomes so much more pleasurable, not just for yourself, but also for the people around you, for everything. So brighten up your life and start shining.
Well said. Well said. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming on.
Thank you, Gary, for having me. All the best, everyone. Peace, love, and wisdom.
Namaste.
Namaste.